Welcome to Talk It Out with Marla P. Today's guest is Tiffany Washington. Welcome, Tiffany.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm glad that you took time out of your schedule to join me on today.
Awesome.
Tiffany is a passionate speaker, certified coach, and author dedicated to empowering individuals to thrive in their purpose, personal development, and leadership. You mentioned that on today you would like to elaborate on discovering your God-given purpose and then walking boldly and confidently in it. Also, how you can thrive in your singleness.
Hey, so much to unpack there. Uh,
Yeah.
so for me, I am a certified coach, and primarily faith-based. So a lot of people will want to work with me because I incorporate faith into what we do. So one of the things, it's just the way that we are as humans. We're looking for purpose. We may not understand that that's what we're looking for, but it's truly what we're seeking if we look deep down and get to the roots of it. And so, what I like to do is try to find purpose not only in a season, but also in life. What am I here for? And that consists of discovering your gifts, right? Seeing your talents. What were your experiences? What are your testimonies? And so we get to unpack that in coaching sessions, but that's something that I do and seek the Lord for in every season of life. And so that kind of brings us into singleness. So for me, I'm single. I do actually want to get married one day. I think some people always assume that if you're Christian and you're single, you are really just wanting to get married and that's the only way. But singles come in so many packages, right? There are
True.
those that are like me that are single, not yet married, and actually want to get married. There are some that are single and they feel called to singleness. They don't have a desire for marriage. There are those who have lost a spouse, who have been divorced, who have children, who don't have children. And so, even though we like to wrap it up in a pretty bow of singleness, right? There are so many different versions of it, and we have different journeys. But also, one of the things that I feel the Lord has blessed me with is to find purpose in the singleness. So even though I'm contending and I've been waiting for a while. So for me, I remember exactly where I was when I gave it to the Lord. In 2017, I said, Lord, I am on fire for you. I don't trust Tiffany, but I do trust you. So
Absolutely.
you choose who my spouse is. In the meantime, I just want to be chasing purpose. And so I've been doing that ever since. And as the Lord takes me on the journey, Marla, I can see what he's doing in my life, how he tells me more about myself, who he's called me to be, how he's healed you in different places, how he's grown you in other places, how he answers prayers and things along those lines. It gives you a little bit of vision into what he's called you to. And so my desire is to encourage singles. Sometimes you get so focused on what you don't have that you don't see what God is doing right now. And so,
That's true.
yes, and it's not a
Absolutely.
rejection. I think about it this way, Marla. So for me, I don't have kids yet, but I've seen kids get vaccines. Okay. And so you think about a really good parent, right? And so they're bringing their little 2-year-old in there and they have to get some vaccines. Okay. And the nurse is holding the child down because maybe they're kicking and screaming. They just see this long needle and they're thinking, I don't know this person, and you're stabbing me. They're calling their mom or calling their dad and crying and screaming. And imagine what that does to the parent, right? Because that child
Right.
doesn't understand what's happening. What I do know is that you, who's supposed to protect and provide for me, is
Mhm.
allowing some stranger to hurt me, to do God knows what, right? And I'm calling to you and you're not answering me, right? And I
Right.
think about, imagine what that's like for God. God does see that you're weary. He may see that you're upset. He may wonder if you've forgotten, or he sees that you're wondering if he's forgotten you, right?
Right.
But God knows, just like that parent, that vaccine is for your good. That's
That's
going
right.
to help you make you healthy. That's going to allow you to even go to school and get an education, right? There's so many things that that allows you to do. We just have to get through this little bit of time, and then you can be in the comfort of your parents' arms. And one day you will understand, right? When you get older, you understand. And so that's how I see with the Lord, right? Even though He may not answer your prayer in the midst of your kicking and your screaming. I've been there, right? With any type of waiting season, right? It's
Right.
always for your good. If he is a good, good father, then he's doing it because ultimately, even though you feel this way now, what's on the other side of this is so great. that me as God, right? Me as a parent is going to allow this to happen for this little bit of time because what's on the other side is going to blow your mind.
That is absolute. It's true. Good stuff.
Yes,
I
yeah.
love that. I love that. So I do have a question.
Mhm.
So how do we differentiate between personal ambition
Mhm.
and God's true calling for our lives?
Ooh, that is always the question, and it's a great question. So, and I think I may be a decent person to ask this to because I am known as an ambitious woman. I've had people ask me, "Well, Tiffany, how do you sleep?" I mean, you're working full time. You are an adjunct instructor at a university. You wrote a book, Thriving in Christian Singleness, right? So much is going on at one time, right? And you want to make sure that you're not running so far that you're off course from the Lord. That is one of the things like, Lord, what is it? What is your will? What is your purpose and your plan? And also, as Christians, sometimes we can say yes to so many ministries and not doing the thing God has called us to do, or God didn't even call us to those ministries. A yes can be for a good thing, but it may not be that thing that God has called us to. And so I would say the answer to that is to pray about it. But we can't just pray and then have made our own decision, right? We have to pray and then give God time to answer.
That's right.
That brings up a whole different conversation. How do you hear the voice of God, right? That we're probably not going to have time to unpack that all the time. I love talking about this. I speak about this a lot, right? Because God talks to us in so many different ways. But if you give him time to answer, one of the things that I feel like is a very pivotal prayer that you can pray is, Lord, if this is not of you, make it clear. Close any door that is not for me or of you, your purpose and your plan, and open up double doors for what you are to have me to do.
That's right. And
And
that's my
yes, yes. And then you ask him, you say, Lord, you know your child, being you, Marla, being me too. So please speak to me in such a way that I know that I know that I know that it's you,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
And then you just leave it to him. Lord, I don't know when you're going to do it or how you're going to do it or what the answer is, but I trust you because your word says that all things are working together for my good. And then you just thank him in advance and you say amen. And then you just see kind of, just be suspicious that the Lord is going to talk to you, not necessarily looking for it because it's probably that moment where you're thinking about something completely different and then boom, that's when he speaks to you. But that's what I would say. You can give the Lord your ambitions. I have very, very candid conversations with the Lord. Lord, I want to do this. Lord, I want to do this. And Lord, I really don't want you to let this happen. Please, Lord, don't let it happen. Right. And I just talk to him about it. But then
Mm-hmm.
I give that prayer of, Lord, if it's not of you, I surrender it. I know that if you're telling me no to this means that something is better for me on the other side of me operating in obedience to whatever you decide. Yep.
That's a that's a
Mm.
perfect answer. That's good.
Mhm.
So how do you know um, what you're pursuing aligns with God's plan for you?
Okay. So one of the things, so when you that prayer, you'll notice certain doors are closing and you'll
Mhm.
notice certain doors are opening, right? You've prayed. That means the Lord is answering your prayer, right? And God is not the author of confusion. Sometimes we just get so confused and we think, oh, I don't know why God is doing this to me. Uh, God is not doing that to you, right? Either you're doing it to yourself or you're taking in too much input from other people, from your own mind, etc. Right? So let
Right.
him open and close doors, but then
Mhm.
also listen to what you are hearing repeatedly. What I mean by that, Marla, is if somebody is always talking to you about, wow, you make that look so easy. So, for example, some people say, oh my gosh, somebody just asked you to speak at the last minute and you moved the entire audience. It was as if the Holy Spirit was moving there, right? And so
Mhm.
for me, I'm thinking, oh gosh, this is last minute. I don't know, and you get up there and you just let the Holy Spirit move through you. That's something that God is saying, oh, this is something I have for you. This is something I want to use you to do for my people. So usually what God is calling you to is not about you, it's for other people. And so that's
That's
what I would be paying attention to. What are some things that people are saying, oh, you make it look so easy, or they keep encouraging you in it, or keep speaking it over you. So for example, a lot of people, they've been told, oh, you should be a pastor, you should be a pastor, you should be oh, have you ever thought about, teaching the word? And that's exactly what they end up doing, right? And so
Right.
God will just send, I call them little God kisses, right? Just give me a little kiss or what, hey, just this is what we're going to do. Just leaving those little nuggets to direct you on the journey in life. And we have to just remember, God will move heaven and earth to give us a message, right? So you don't have to worry about missing him unless you are just focused on not hearing whatever he has to say.
That's so true.
Mhm.
True. Wow. Well, then that leads me to my next question.
Mhm.
What role do fears and doubts play when it comes to, step into your purpose?
Okay. Oh, this is so.
You know what you want,
Mhm.
but then, it's like, I don't know if I have what it takes, or I don't know if I'm good enough to receive. You just have
Mhm.
those negative thoughts in your head.
Right. I would say that's common in
Mhm.
whatever God's calling you to do.
Mhm.
I believe that the Lord leaves a little something in
Mhm.
whatever He's called you to do. So, for example, with the example of me and speaking, right? People say, "Wow, you just make it look so easy. You're talented. You know the word and you speak it in a way where we understand it, right?" Okay.
Mhm.
But at the same time, there's a little piece of you that doubts, right? Or wonders, oh, can I do it this time? Or, I've never talked to this type of person before, right? So, for example, I've spoken in recovery programs, and I'm not someone who has suffered from addiction, right? And you think that came in my mind. And I said, who am I to encourage these people? They're encouraging me. That can't be an easy journey, right?
Mhm.
So that fear may come in and that doubt may come in, right? But what that does is that makes you call on the Lord for help, right? Because we have to remember we're not supposed to be doing it in our own strength. In
Mhm.
fact, Marla, if I notice that it's so easy, I don't have to check in with the Lord, I just say yes and run with it, then I know this is of Tiffany and not of God.
That's right.
God will put just a little bit of something where you need to check in with him or make
Mhm.
sure that you're aligned with it. So the doubt, I really wouldn't be so concerned about. What you can do is you can just ask God to confirm. But once he confirms it and makes it clear, you need to just get your mind right and get your grind right. And that's what he's called you to do. So I recommend writing it down and putting dates. So you see every time you got this confirmation, because those doubts will inevitably sink in. The enemy will come in and tell you, did God say that? We have to remember that's exactly what he did in the garden. But and so it's the same playbook he's using over and over again. So we have to start using our playbook, the Bible and the Word, to see that deception, even in Genesis, right? But then
Mhm.
writing it down, the things that God has told you to do. So fear did not come from the Lord. You have to know that. So if it's something that is causing you to fear, you know it didn't come from the Lord.
That's
You may
right.
know who it came from, but it is not the Lord, right? So don't let fear direct your path ever.
Mhm.
Where you're feeling that fear, you check in with the Lord and you let him know, hey, Lord, I'm really afraid of this thing. So please speak to me about it. Tell me if I'm doing the wrong thing or if I need to go a different direction or if this means that I'm exactly on the path that you want me to be on. And he will.
That's true. That's true.
Mhm.
And like you may find some people that may compare themselves to others. And we
Mhm.
all know that comparison is the thief of joy.
Sure is. Mhm.
Okay. So how do we avoid like comparison when discovering our own purpose?
Okay. So I'll talk from my experience. One of the things that I've noticed, I study myself a lot. I think more people need to really study themselves. And it comes with comparison too. You'll study everybody else or what people are
Right.
saying you should do, right? But you don't study yourself. Know your own patterns, right? Know your own hesitations. So, in studying myself, one of the things that I notice is that I have the most joy actually when I'm doing the thing God has told me to do, right? That may not even look like what Tiffany wants to do. And honestly, I'm at that point where it usually doesn't look like what Tiffany does. But if I'm doing the thing that God has told me to do, then that's where I find the joy.
Mhm.
Okay. And so that means that I'm focusing on what the Lord told me to do. That means that that is Tiffany's path. I call it keeping your eye on your own paper. So whenever I led a single women's ministry with one of my best friends, which is Thriving in Christian Singleness, with the devotional I wrote as well, titled. And so we talk about keeping your eye on your own paper. Sometimes we're thinking about what this person has and what that person has. And just like you said, robbing you of your own joy, right? What did the
Mhm.
Lord call you to? Where does He have you in this season? Can you trust that that is the best that He has for you, exactly where you're at until He calls you to more? Look at it and say, okay, Lord, this is where I'm at. This is what I have. This is whatever you're trying to compare to. This is what it looks like for me. What do you have to teach me and what do you want me to learn? So I would say keeping your eye out on your own paper, remembering that your path is perfect. Don't worry about what other people's plans look like. And it may not, the thing about it, it doesn't seem perfect, right? If we look at the stories of the Bible, if you
Mhm.
really know David wasn't perfect, Abraham wasn't perfect, Jonah wasn't perfect, right? We're talking, but it was perfect. It made the Bible, right? It needed to happen. And we see that even though you have an imperfect path, maybe to our standards or to other standards, or me reading the Bible, I'm thinking, oh, wow, that was bumpy, right? But
Mhm.
it's exact, God can redirect that exactly to where it needs to be. So either way, it works out for your good. So yeah, I would say just keep your eye out on your own paper. Trust that God is writing the best version of your story for every single chapter. Sometimes you just want to take the pen from him and write it yourself, right? But you just have to keep surrendering that pen and say, Lord, this is how I would write it. Sometimes I'll say, Lord, this is how I would write it, right? But I trust that your version will always be better. Your ways are higher than my ways. God is not thinking about Marla today only. God is
Mhm.
thinking about Marla 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and generations to come, right?
Yes.
So who is Marla to try to write that story today when he's thinking about the next generation and the following generation? So you just have to surrender that pen and trust him.
And that's true. And you just have to keep in mind that God created us in his own image.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have, it's our blueprint, our fingerprint. We're
Mm-hmm.
not going to be like someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, just trust that. Like, hey, this is my journey. This is where God has me. He
Mm-hmm.
he knows all.
Mm-hmm.
You have to trust his plan.
Mm-hmm. And
And
then
that's my mind. Like you just have to trust the plan.
trust the plan. And so many things. I think we easily forget how our lives today is
Mhm.
exactly what we prayed for 2, 5, 10 years ago, right?
Absolutely.
And we're already thinking about what we don't have 2, 5, 10 years from now, or right now, right? And so we have to remember, okay, wait, these are things that I prayed for. God answered them. It didn't quite line up with my timing, but oh, I see his hand, his fingerprints along the way. His hand was on me the whole time. And I thank God he didn't answer my prayer when I actually prayed it, that he waited and took me through some things to prepare me to handle that blessing. So if I saw him do it back then I
Mhm.
can trust him to do it again.
That's so true. That's
Hmm.
his timing is perfect,
Hmm.
you know? But yeah, that's some good stuff. Good stuff. So with singleness,
Hmm.
focus on that for a minute. How can we practice gratitude in
Hmm.
our single season?
Mm. Similar situation to the parent and the screaming child. I think that's how some singles are perceived and maybe actually are. Some people are at different journeys. For me, and I wrote about it in the preface of my book. It was 2020 when I realized the Lord gave me a different perspective on singleness. So, while you're with your friends that are also single, you can see some people not happy with it, some miserable, mad at God, all sorts of things, and some thriving in it. They love being single, almost a little too much, right? So you're everywhere along the spectrum. For me, I saw it as an opportunity to really get to know God, to seek and find out my purpose. I remember I prayed and asked God, I wanted to know my purpose before he sent me my spouse. I just wanted to be a whole human, right?
Right.
Looking for someone to fill a God-sized hole. And that's what I think a lot of singles can be doing, right? You want someone to make you feel good about yourself, or to complete your life or your journey, or you need someone to do something with you. Don't put your life on hold. If you
Mhm.
want to go to that place, go to that place. If you want to go to that event, go to that event. If you want to buy a house, buy that house. You don't have to wait for a
Mhm.
spouse. It doesn't matter what society tells you is the order of the list. That's the thing. And again, like what you brought up about comparison, you can
Yes.
put your whole life on hold because the thing is, you don't know when God is going to send that spouse. You could get one today. That's the thing. You can if you want to, but do
Mhm.
you want an Ishmael? Do
Right.
you want an Ishmael, right? God
Mhm.
sometimes will let us, do it
Mhm.
our own way, but I don't want to have to go back and say, God, I'm sorry. I should have done it your way. But even if that does happen, and that does happen, I've had an Ishmael and a different prayer request, right? Um,
Right.
but even if you do that, his plan hasn't changed for you. He still loves you. He still understands, right? He just wants you to just come back to him and get
Mhm.
back on the plan. It has not changed, right? And your purpose has not changed. So I would say, yeah, just focus on keeping your eye on what God has called you to do.
Mhm.
Remember that God's plan is for your best. Seek what he has for you today. What does he want you to know about yourself? What does he want you to know about him? One of the things that I learned in my singleness is I learned God is my everything. I mean, he's that perfect father, mother, brother, friend, confidant, protector, waymaker, chain breaker, healer. I've just seen all of these things where now no one person can do the things that I expect God to do, right? And I think some people, they expect a human, a person who's faulty, right? Just like I'm faulty, right? We're going to make mistakes. And we put that God-sized expectation on a person. So I would say, really get to know God, get to know him of whatever you're desiring right now. I think some people don't have a best friend. They're really looking for a best friend, right? Ask God to reveal himself
Yeah.
as your best friend and experience that for a while and how whole that is, right? God is not someone you can kind of touch and feel unless he sends somebody to hug you, right? Which he can do too, right? But you can't
Mhm.
really touch and feel him, right? But can you learn to experience him in that way? Can you submit to him, right? In
Mhm.
his way and his will, just like for the men, you're going to have a woman submit to you. Why don't you submit to the Lord and you start to learn what that is like, right? Women, you're submitting to a godly man, right? Learn that too. There are so many things we could be doing along the way. And then also thriving and living your best life because once you are no longer single, you are no
Right.
longer single. You don't want to go back and say, oh gosh, I woulda, coulda, shoulda done all
I
these
know.
I wanted to do. So for me, I wanted to live abroad, and I've lived abroad twice already. I wanted to learn French, and now I'm fluent in French. There's so many things you could be doing, but if I was married and had kids, this would be something I'd probably have to put off until the time was right, right? So
Right.
yes, see what God has for you, and with the Lord and prayerfully make your own dreams come true right now. Don't even wait on that because you'll have more dreams when that time comes, right?
I
Mhm.
love that. I love that. One word that you said, well, everything you said was beautifully spoken. You said whole.
Mhm.
And you find so many people that
Mhm.
look for someone to come in to make them complete.
Mhm.
But happiness is an inside job,
Mhm. Yeah, so I
you
like that.
know?
That's good.
And you should be whole when God send you your husband.
Mhm.
It just I love that. When you said whole, I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, like can you tell someone um what a certain body language means in you, how you act when you're hungry or tired? Can you tell them your hobbies? Do you have hobbies? There are some singles out there, they don't even have hobbies. It's
No.
I mean, I watch TV and go to work and I'm praying for a husband. And that's really or a wife, Get some activities, get your friendships. Who are your top your closest friend, your inner circle? Get to know yourself,
That's
and your habits and things like that so that you're able to explain yourself to someone because you know yourself so well, right? You don't
right.
have to be madly in love with every aspect of yourself, right? But you should show yourself unconditional love, and then you won't be desiring that from somebody else,
Mhm.
right? Not so badly, right? Yeah, so unconditionally love yourself, flaws and all, because You are with this 24/7, 365. This is the package that you were given. What are you
Yeah.
going to do with it? You can always improve it, but love yourself. You know what I mean, regardless.
And I agree with that absolutely, wholeheartedly. You dropped some great nuggets here. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I know you're an author.
Mhm.
You want to talk about your book?
Oh, sure. So the book is called Thriving in Christian Singleness,
Mhm.
40 Days of Fervent Prayer for the Weary Single. But honestly, it's really a book for anybody in a waiting season. I've had married people come to me and tell me, you know what, Tiffany, these are just good biblical principles. It's right here if you want to take a look. So,
Nice.
Thriving in Christian Singleness, 40 Days of Fervent Prayer. And so, in the preface, I give you the background on the book. So, again, I saw singleness differently once upon a time, or usually in general. I see it as a time of seeking purpose, discovering yourself, growing closer to the Lord, and having fun, thriving in this life. But actually, I wrote this book earlier this year. There was a plot twist where I started to get weary in my singleness. I mean, Marla, I didn't even recognize myself. I was just thinking, oh, Lord. This is the one prayer you haven't answered. Does this mean you're not going to answer it? What is going on? I surrender my whole life to you. What is happening? Right. And so I remember I came into work and someone asked me, they said, Tiffany, when's the last time you talked to one of my coworkers who no longer even worked there? And the first thought I thought wasn't the last time I spoke with this person, but that they told me you should write a devotional. And then my first thought was thriving in Christian singleness, you're writing this book. So I thought, I don't even understand. I need encouragement, and you're having me write a book to encourage other people. You know, you don't want to do it. That's why I said, if I don't want to do something, that's usually easier for me to know that it's the Lord. But
Right.
I started writing it, Marla. Oh my gosh, I got encouraged in my spirit. So in the book, we talk about idols. We talk about there's nothing wrong with you. We talk about trusting the Lord. We talk about your callings. We talk about healing. We're talking about conflict management, your ambition and career, things along those lines for 40 days. And we also go through the Bible. So
Okay.
stories. So one of the gifts the Lord has really blessed me with, I love making the stories in the Bible come alive in such a way that you can see yourself in the characters. We have to remember these aren't just old stories or fables. This actually happened and it's in the book for a reason, the good book for a reason, right? And so we get to go through that. And so my hope is that at the end, the reader will gather the courage to believe again in God, in their circumstances, and also in themselves. And so, yes, if you're interested in thriving in Christian singleness, you can get it on Amazon. But I also recommend just going to my website, TIFF, Washington.com. You can check it out there.
Perfect. So I was going to ask you for your social media handles. So thank you for the information.
Okay.
You're on Facebook,
I
Instagram.
am I am on Instagram. I just made an Instagram, so I could use some followers. It's at underscore Tiff TIFF Washington. So at underscore Tiff Washington is my Instagram. And if you want to invite me to speak at your conference, church, or organization, if you are stuck in an area of your life and want to explore coaching, both, you can also go to my website at TIFFWashington.com.
Love it. Love it. So what can people expect from you next?
Mm. Okay, so I have a couple speaking engagements coming up. So if you're interested in inviting me to speak, it's usually faith-based encouragement. Then you can go to my website and click on speaking and invite me to speak, fill out that form. I've been asked already, when am I going to release another book? So yeah, I'm thinking, wow, I just got this one published this year. So I'm not sure. I'll have to pray on that. But yes, and then coaching. And honestly, the Lord has really just taken me on a beautiful adventure. I mean, I've just been telling people, last year I never thought this would be my life in 2024, that I would be an author. in 2024. And so I just want to encourage you, if you surrender your plans to the Lord, you ask him what he has for you, I'm telling you it's better than what you imagine. And give him your yes. You have to remember, I wanted to say no. And now look how many people, I mean, just hearing how it's encouraged people, they were really down. And it's good to hear from somebody who is also single. A lot of books are written by people who are married right now, right? So it's a little easier on the other side, right? That gives us a different form of hope. But hearing somebody who's still holding on and believing, but also thriving at the same time is a different level of encouragement. Mhm.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, wow. So, what is one final thought that you will want to leave with my listeners on today?
I would have to say, kind of a charge of encouragement. Wherever you're finding yourself, whether on the mountaintops or in the valleys, we have to remember that God is with us on the mountaintops and the valleys and everywhere in between. If the Lord is taking you through something, whether that's something great and praiseworthy in your eyes or through a trial or hard season, we have to remember there's purpose in it. That's just one of my big things, just always seeking the Lord for purpose in a season and an action. For me, even in loss, I lost my mother. And it actually pushed me away from the Lord. I didn't even realize how upset I was to him until he came and he sought me out. And so, even in that, I can see the Lord's hand there, right? So, if I can be encouraged by the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my life thus far, then I just want to encourage you to seek the Lord for purpose. It could take a while. That took years for me to reconcile that. But I mean, the fire that I have for the Lord, I never would have imagined that I had. I remember I thought, when I turn 60, I'll read the book, the Bible and have the faith of my mom and my grandmother, and I am way younger than 60 and just on fire for the Lord. So yes, wherever God has you, there's purpose in it. Seek his heart. Don't let as hard as it can be at times, don't let a hard time put distance between you and the Lord. That very thing that that the Bible is telling you to do that you don't want to do, such as read the Bible or worship. Sometimes we get very disheartened and last thing I want to do is worship. Well, then that's when I know that's exactly what I need to do. And I just feel those chains just coming off of me as I'm worshiping the Lord, even when I didn't originally feel like it. So just give God your yes as well.
Wow. Wow. I love that. I love that. And I love it for so many different reasons because I can relate to you as well. I lost my mom in 2022, and my mom was a Christian, my grandmother was a Christian, and I was very close to both of them. And you can relate, losing a parent is one of the hardest things you can ever do.
Mhm.
And I would say I went through that period where I questioned God.
Mhm.
I'm like, God, my mom was such a Christian, a faithful woman, you know,
Mm.
great person,
Mm.
like, why?
Why? Mhm.
And I went through different stages, I went through being confused, I went through being angry, I went through just different stages. And then I was like, you know what, God, you make no mistakes.
Mhm.
And I'm only gonna do what I know what you want me to do.
Mm.
She passed me the torch and I'm running with it.
Right. Oh, praise God. I am so sorry to hear about that loss. And I totally understand with the roller coaster of emotions.
Mm.
But it's just so beautiful that you're on the other side. I pray that somebody's encouraged even by listening to us. I think sometimes when people meet me, I'm so smiley and just so encouraging, and people think, "Gosh, Tiffany never went through anything in her life." But you would be deceived. There's a story, but in the end, I do trust God. Yeah, and so I want that with your whole heart, even when it's hard. I'm just
Yes.
you have to remember, and that's what I also want to encourage other people. Feelings are fleeting. The word is solid. Okay.
Yes.
So when it says that God is good, it means that he is good. Your feeling is telling you he's not or that you can't trust him, but you
Mhm.
can. If you can put your money on anyone, please let it be the Lord, right?
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Mhm.
right. I love it. Tiffany, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, it's been a
It
pleasure.
has
Yes,
been
for me too.
a pleasure. I mean, your spirit is just beautiful. We just our first time meeting, and you have such a beautiful spirit.
Oh, thank you.
And I just want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know you're a busy person, and for reaching out.
Yes. And I want to thank you, Marla. It's such an honor to be here and to meet you. And wow, now I know a couple of connections that we have,
Right.
similar journeys. And so I'd love to keep in contact with you. Uh,
Absolutely.
yes, and thank you all for tuning in and listening to this podcast. Like Marla, I just pray blessings and favor, open doors as you operate in obedience to what God has called you to. Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And before we leave, I like to leave my listeners with my motto. When
Yeah.
you see the need, plant the seed.
Mm, plant the seed. Amen. Yes, I received that.